Not to be dramatic or anything, but after owning this 2019 Ram Rebel for just about a year, I can safely say this truck has altered our lives for, let's say, the good and the bad. Let's jump into this video today. In today's video, I'm going to give you my 1 year review on this Ram Rebel. Why did we get this truck? The modifications that we did to it, because we do have quite a few modifications that are done, the bad things, the good things, and then my overall impressions of the truck. So, story time, guys. Quick backstory. I think at heart, a Jeep guy. I've had 3 Jeep Wranglers at this point in time. Our last vehicle was a 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited JLU. Me and my wife, we love to do cross-country road trips. We love to do stealth camping. We love to do off-roading and kind of adventuring and stuff like that. So we would take cross-country road trips maybe once or twice a year. So we used the Jeep quite a lot in that category. It wasn't until our last trip when we went down to Orlando from SoCal, and we were down there, I want to say, for a couple of weeks. This was the last trip that we took with the Jeep, and I was noticing on our travel out there how many people had full-size pickup trucks, either pulling like a little camper with them, or they were loaded up with all of their gear and everything like that. Because of the way that we like to travel is we like going places and staying there for a good amount of time. So sometimes we would go from SoCal all the way back to Buffalo, New York, where we're from, and we would stay there for a month or so. And it's usually me, my wife, our 2 dogs. We have 2 Huskies. They're not the biggest, breeds, but they're still fairly big dogs. And we would have enough gear for a month. So having all of that stuff instead of a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited was doable, but it was starting to get a little bit cramped. Truly, on our last trip out to Orlando, we were pretty much like loaded all the way up. When it comes down to trucks, I want to say I have always liked trucks, especially since the first gen Raptor came out. The other vehicle, which was the Gladiator, that was probably the biggest competitor. Like, it was still, for me, the vehicle that we almost bought. Even when I got my last JLU, I wanted to get a Gladiator, and I was looking at Gladiators as well. This time around, we were definitely looking at getting Gladiators for sure. When we went to go buy this vehicle, the dealership had a Gladiator as well, so we looked at that as well. And if we would have fell in love with the Gladiator, we would have been coming home with that. The deciding factor when it came down to purchasing this over everything else was the price, and then also the bang for your buck. And also the fact that I really do like the Fiat Chrysler styling. I love Dodge's styling. I love this interior. And that definitely did win me over. Don't get me wrong, I think the Gladiators are cool and everything, but especially from coming from already having a Jeep Wrangler, it didn't make that much sense for me just because it felt like getting the same vehicle. Okay, so now that you know why in the world we did get this truck, let me tell you guys the modifications that we did to this thing. So it's nothing too crazy, but as you can see, we have the SmartCap Evo bed cap, and I did a video on this, which I'm gonna do actually an updated video on this pretty soon, talking about just this in particular, because this guy I absolutely love. I love the hinges. I love there's like the little doggy doors, so you can like open up these little windows and stuff like that. So this thing is great. I absolutely love this if you want extra storage and everything like that. So been a very big part of this truck and this build so far. We have this awning, it's rooftop tent on, it's the Nomadic 4. Did some smaller things, like some front markers in the front, which actually I got that from the Facebook group. There's a guy that sells them. If you're in like the Facebook group, like the Ram Rebel Facebook group, I think he's in like a couple of them. He does like this kit. So it gives you kind of like the Raptor style or even the TRX style front markers inside of the front grille. There is a 3-inch lift kit on here, and we are running some aftermarket 35-inch tires on the stock wheel. A couple other small little things. I have like a phone mount inside. I did just get like another hitch, which that will be coming up later on. But yeah, so a couple different small things I have for the truck, but overall it's a fairly stock truck. Nothing too crazy besides like the blacked out windows, but it's a fairly stock truck for what it is. Okay, cool. So now I want to talk about some of the negative things about the truck, and then we'll get into the positive things after that. Yeah, so first things first, if you couldn't quite tell, the truck itself is fairly large. And I know that's probably a contradiction to what I was saying of why we bought the truck itself, because it was bigger than the Gladiator, but yeah, it is a full-size truck. It's not a Super Duty or anything like that, but it is still a full-size truck, especially now that we have it lifted and everything like that. So one of the biggest things that we're finding is just parking. And okay, this is going to sound like the most first world problem ever, but if you are looking to buy a Ram Rebel, I mean, that is actually a first world problem, if that makes sense. So I will say, so especially if you have to go anywhere where there's parking ramps, or there's like, if you're in a city or anything like that, like in SoCal or in LA, it is very hard to find parking in different areas. Now, I know that sounds a little bit harsh and a little bit, you know, like obviously, but when it actually starts to come down to like practicality reasons, especially like, so for me and my wife, we do a lot of theme park stuff. If you guys aren't subscribed, we have a theme park channel linked down below, but it's kind of strange. At certain places we can park the truck inside oversized, and other places it's harder to get oversized parking. So just scenarios like that, you have to think about even going to different doctor's offices or places or events. If there's a parking ramp or anything like that, you have to think, oh, my truck won't fit. And even if it could fit inside the height wise, just trying to get into parking spots is very, very hard. So that is one thing that you definitely have to worry about. If you're somewhere like in the middle of nowhere or somewhere where there's plenty of room, you don't have to worry about that. You don't park in parking ramps. This won't even apply to you, so don't even be worried about that. But if you're someone who has to go into the city a lot or anything like that, you do have to think about that, you know, fairly a decent amount of times. So don't get me wrong, I love the fact that the vehicle is large and it's big and everything like that, but it does take up just extra room. And speaking of extra room though, the elephant in the room is this guy is not great on gas, obviously. But if you are doing long trips, it doesn't do the greatest on gas. Now I know part of that is my fault. We do have the rooftop tent on top, so that's definitely sucking up some of the MPGs. So for us, especially because we do a lot of like cross-country road trips and everything like that, it does take up a lot of gas. Like I know for a lot of people, the appeal of driving versus flying is because you'll save money on the flight ticket if you're just paying for gas. In this, not necessarily the case. I mean, it makes more sense for us because there's like two of us and then we have our dogs and everything like that. So it makes sense for us to drive. But for most other people, you know, it wouldn't quite balance out just because of how much it does take on gas, and you are stopping more frequently to even get gas, so it does take up even more time. So that is like a, you know, a negative thing, but it's all part of the territory. So I know what you're thinking. These issues aren't that big of a deal. Tell me, has there been any other major things that have happened to the truck? So yes. So there is one major repair I did have to do. I did a whole video on it. It was the transmission cooler needed to be replaced, and some of the lines and everything like that. Overall, it wasn't too bad of getting everything replaced. I think it was maybe like $1,500 I had to pay for everything completely. But it was inconvenient because of when it did happen, the truck went down completely. Luckily, it happened actually at another theme park, but I did have to have the truck towed back to our house, and then I had to take it in to get repairs done. So that was a major issue. But I do want to mention, so my vehicle obviously isn't new. I did buy a 2019 in the year 2023. So I did buy mine pre-owned, so it did have some miles on it and everything like that. But as far as reliability, I do know people are concerned when it starts getting up to like 150,000 miles. There is the Hemi tick and everything like that people do talk about. I haven't had any issues, so I can't speak to everyone's vehicle, but I can say, at least with my vehicle, I did have that one major issue in my time of ownership of the truck. But besides for that, I haven't had any other thing that has gone wrong, knock on tailgate, but yeah, everything else has been pretty solid when it comes down to the vehicle itself.
Now for all the fun things about the truck, I will say this guy has honestly been everything that I wanted it to be. We did purchase this truck for a reason. It has helped us maintain and even do more of the lifestyle things that we love to do and continue to do that was inside of the Jeep. Yes, things are different, but I think the trade-offs are, pretty good. Whereas in the Jeep was smaller, more nimbler, you can get into more tighter and like technical trails with the Jeep Wrangler. But with this guy, it has allowed us to be able to bring dirt bikes with us, to be able to get a trailer, which that will be coming. Which it has allowed us to do more and more things and be able to do long cross-country road trips and being able to, be very, very comfortable. Whereas inside of the Jeep is great off-road, but on-road it does has a limit. It's limits. With this guy, it is definitely more geared to be on-road with off-road capabilities. It is great, honestly, even just driving in the city itself. Yes, it is big, so you have to just be, wary about that and just know like certain streets you can't necessarily go down, which is kind of funny. It's like the complete opposite of the Corvette, whereas in that I have to be worried about getting into certain parking areas because it's like too low to the ground, making sure I don't scrape. And here I have to just make sure I can find somewhere that it's like big enough that I can park and enough room. So, things like that, like even going to like the store, I usually park kind of further back from the front of the store, just so it'll be easier to pull in and pull out. Don't gotta worry about anything like that. But stuff like that though, once you get inside of the truck, you'll get used to it. If you've driven any type of larger vehicle, you kind of understand that principle. I also want to mention with this Hemi, the 5.7 Hemi and the 8-speed ZF 8-speed, it works fairly well in here. I've had the same setup combo inside of my old Challenger RT, so I do like the 5.7 Hemi. I think it's a good engine. It is fairly powerful for the truck. It's nothing crazy. It's not gonna throw you back in your seat, but it definitely has a nice rumble to it, a nice growl, and it definitely moves the vehicle quite well. With all that being said, what are my concluding thoughts and the future plans of this truck? Honestly, the way that the truck is, I feel like it's great. I still want to do a couple more modifications to it. I think I might do a exhaust, maybe a quarter intake. Nothing too crazy, because I honestly feel like the truck, the way it is set up fairly well. I like the way the suspension is set up on this guy, and I really like the way that it just feels on the road. I feel like for me, I'm in a different type of situation. I don't necessarily like daily drive that much, so I don't necessarily have to worry about the gas or parking all that often. It's usually places that I'm going to be going to park. It's like a destination or something like that, like we're going there for a reason, if that makes sense. So for me, the way it is I kind of like it. I'm gonna probably take the rooftop tent off, just because of part of the truck. We are going to be switching the setup a little bit. We are going to be getting a travel trailer as well. So I'm excited to be able to tow with this guy and then really give my thoughts back on how does it do with a small little travel trailer. Just be able to do longer trips and even coming out places like here to be able to camp and just stay longer. I think that's going to be like a real nice addition. But overall, man, this truck has been great. And honestly, it has kind of transformed the way that we do things. It has opened things up for us in a lot of different ways. Like I was saying before, this truck has honestly, it has altered our lives for the good and the bad.